So I brought some Jamaica, and specifically 2 frames of Jamaica from the turn of the 19th to the 20th century, so from 1890s and into the first 10 years or so of the 1900s, the 20th century. And the first thing is an exhibition postmark that actually Ray showed earlier this morning. I didn't know Ray was going to show that, but I've got an example here of that square circle postmark for the Jamaica exhibition, which was in 1891. This was part of an initiative by the Jamaican authorities, the Jamaica government, to improve the economy of the island and tourism and all these sorts of things, trade and so on. And that started in the 1891, the exhibition. And the sort of promotion of the island continued very much for 10 years or so. And coincided about that time with the advent of picture postcards in the late 1800s and the first 10 years or so of the 1900s. And I'm showing a few examples here of early picture postcards used in, Jamaican postcards used in Jamaica. As you can see probably from a distance, a lot of the early cards are made up of these multiple scenes rather than one single picture. And this is quite a nice early one, which is used in 1899, which is pretty early for a picture postcard in Jamaica. There's one from 1900 as well. Some hotels were built to support the Jamaica exhibitions, big hotels. The Jamaica collectors will know them. Some of the other people here may have heard of them. Myrtle Bank Hotel is perhaps the most famous in Kingston, and this is the Myrtle Bank Hotel, and it's temporary rubber date stamp for the post office or post agency, I guess, that was in that hotel. There's another one here, Constant Spring Hotel, just outside Kingston, towards the mountains, and that's got, again, a temporary rubber date stamp. And this is the permanent postmark, the same hotel, permanent postmark a few years later. These were about the turn of the century, 1900, something like that, the postmarks. The hotels themselves were built for the exhibitions. They were built around 1888, 1890 in the build-up towards the exhibition. And the third of these hotels is the Titchfield Hotel, and there's an example here of, again, the temporary rubber date stamp from the postal agency there. And these are all postcards used in those post offices, and then mostly, if not entirely, certainly the ones I show the front of, they're postcards of the hotel as well. This was Hotel Titchfield again. In 1903, there was an enormous hurricane hit the island. Quite a lot of people were killed. I forget the number, it's on here somewhere, 60 or 70 people, I think. Millions of dollars worth of damage, though, and the banana crop was devastated, and that was the main income to the island probably at the time, was bananas, or the main trade, let's say, anyway. This is a postcard for Jamaica Hurricane Relief Funds. There was an organisation trying to raise funds. This was an invitation to a meeting of that organisation. This was the following year, almost a full year later, so they were still raising money to repair and provide relief, I guess, for homeless people and so on. So very badly hit the island was by that. About that time, late 1903 and 1904, you start to find blue ink postmarks on Jamaica stamps and postal stationery items. They're not that common, but you do come across them. And it's tempting to suggest that that was because of a shortage of ink or something like that, because of all the problems that were going on in the island at the time. I've got no evidence of that, but the timing is quite a coincidence otherwise. There were a handful of officers, I've listed them here, that used blue ink, that are known. There were probably a few more. And there's some nice examples here of some of those marks used in that period. So that's 1903. The island was very badly hit by that hurricane. The stamps of this time are quite interesting, and this is sort of why I showed this display. These were issued in 1905 to 1908, and these are the head of Queen Victoria still. This is the same design that goes back to 1860. And rather than, I think, go to the expense of a new stamp issue or developing the arms series, which was being used at the time, a small coat of arms, Jamaica coat of arms, and there were 5 or 6 values, I forget exactly how many, they went back to using, rather than produce new values of that series, they continued to use the plates of the Queen Victoria issue. And so these were issued in 1905 to 1908, and there's an example of a cover there, with a Victoria and some of the arms stamps, just to show the mixed usage in the period. And then they're still issuing them later. This is 1909 to 1911. These different colours and so on were being issued. So threepence, fourpence, sixpence, shilling and 2 bob were the values that were being used. And again, a couple of covers there showing the threepenny stamps being used in 1911. These are, well, that might be philatelic, but that's not philatelic. They were genuinely used at that time. They were the only threepenny and shilling stamps and so on that were used at that time. Compounding the problem of the hurricane, a few years later, again, you've probably all heard of it, the 1907 Kingston earthquake sort of finished up what the hurricane didn't quite manage to do and destroyed an awful lot of Kingston. There's a few postcards here. They're very common. You'll have seen the postcards before. I just showed 3 of those. But I like this. This is a postcard posted on the day of the earthquake. And this is written by someone at Constant Spring Hotel on the Saturday. On Monday afternoon at 3:30, the earthquake hit Kingston. This was obviously taken from Constant Spring Postal Agency in the morning. There was a 9:30 collection. That went to Kingston. It's got a Kingston postmark for January the 14th, the day of the earthquake. And that obviously got on a ship and out of the island hours before the earthquake hit. So that, for me, is a very nice item. You won't find many like that. There's a few here of a couple here of postcards sent in the following month, in February, with messages like, "We all escaped from the earthquake, one of my cousins was killed, RMS Sabor left here for England, I wish I was coming back on her." So some quite nice postal history, or almost social history from that time. Barbados issued a Kingston Relief Fund, a charity stamp. That's there with a usage. Unfortunately not to Jamaica, it's used to British Guiana. And here's a postcard sent 5th of March, so about 6 weeks after the earthquake, from Titchfield Hotel. And it's not got a stamp on it, it's inscribed "Penny Paid" in crayon. And again, tempting to think you've got stamp shortages now, or getting stuff out of Kingston, out to some of the post offices. Again, I've not seen any other examples of that. I'm sure there are examples of unstamped items in the months after the earthquake. And then just to finish up, Myrtle Bank Hotel was destroyed. This is a postcard showing the picture of the wreck of the hotel after the earthquake, and was rebuilt a few years later. It opened in 1910, and here's the rebuilt hotel with the new temporary rubber date stamp, because as was mentioned earlier today, any excuse, post offices open with a temporary rubber date stamp, and then the proper device arrives later. So yeah, that's sort of 15, 20 years or so of Jamaica postal history around the turn of the century. Thank you.